Hey everyone, I'm Jordan Wright, co-founder and CEO of Atomic, and I'm here at SF FinTech Week sitting down with Snigdha Kumar, CEO and co-founder of Brico, for our series, The Action Layer, which is about the gap between where fintech is and where it actually changes people's lives. Brico is building AI-powered infrastructure that automates financial licensing, money transmitter licenses, lending licenses, crypto licensing. All 50 states in one platform. Snigdha came up through product at Digit and Opportun and is now taking on one of the most unsexy but critically important problems in fintech. Snigdha, it's great to have you. I'm looking forward to spending some time with you today. I want to first talk about a little bit about Brico. Tell us a little bit about the company. So it's automates financial licensing. Kind of for those that don't know, it's state by state laws and regulations that have to be navigated as somebody's trying to set up different like lending, crypto, money transmitter licensing. Can you walk us through why it's still painful today and what Brico's doing about it?
Yeah. So in the US, if you are a financial company and you're not a bank, you actually need to be registered in all 50 states, no matter what financial product you're providing. So it can be payments, crypto,
in order
lending.
to operate in that state.
And you're not, I'm sorry?
In order to operate in that state.
Operate in a state, yes.
That's
So if
right.
you want to be like a nationwide
Yep.
player, you need to be registered in all of those states. And each of the activities, not like you can get one license for like all your financial services activity, right? So you have to get a different one for payment, in some states, different one for crypto, in most states, different for lending, servicing, debt collection, mortgage, insurance, like all of these things are controlled state by state, and sometimes even city. So like New York has 2 licenses, Buffalo has a license also, which is surprising, but it exists. And the reason it's very painful right now is because you're effectively working in 50 countries, even though you're working just in the US, because each of these 50 states have their own versions of what they need. They interpret laws differently. They may say one thing, but they actually mean something else. And you just need to navigate this complex maze of what is really required for me to be licensed and to be regulated in these states. And then the regulations also keep on changing. So what you thought you had to do 6 months ago, a state might have suddenly changed what you actually need to do after 6 months. So regulations are constantly changing. 50 states, 50 different information. There's a lot of asymmetry of information. And all of that makes it painful. And then finally, it's also, for the longest time, the incumbents in this space, so like law firms and consulting firm, kind of thrived off making it even more complicated, right? Because the more scary you make it, the more complicated you make it, the more money you can charge for it.
Totally.
So that's also one of the reasons it's been historically painful, because of the narrative that this is extremely scary, extremely hard, and you need like $1,000 per hour someone to really help you navigate this complex maze, which is not true.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And you actually chose to start a business in a unique part because your background at Digit, Opportun, right? Like these sorts of things. Obviously, you are touching some of the regulatory components of those companies. But I find it fascinating. Rhett Roberts from Loan Pro believes that compliance and regulatory is a big moat for. I think he talks about that for his business. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to us about what the opportunity was you saw in the unsexy industry of compliance and regulation, and then why, and do you think it is a moat to be operating in that space? Why does that particularly attract you to starting business?
Yeah, so before the US, I worked in 8 different countries worldwide, and most of these were like not as developed as the US. And then I came to the US, do a master's at Harvard, and I was mind-boggled when I saw how complex it was to launch a financial product here. In like Indonesia, India, it's just a lot faster to innovate and increase access to financial products. And then you come here and you're like, this is the most developed country. There are people who need access to these services, and they're just not being able to, like the industry not able to innovate because the barrier to entry is super high. So that was my first kind of insight into, well, why is this so complicated? And then as luck would have it, at Digit, which I joined early stage, we had to build a real-time payment product. And part of it was figuring out money transmission licenses, because for a long period, we had figured out how not to kind of be a money transmitter.
Yeah.
And then after a point, you need to get an MTL license because certain use cases are not supported. That was when I realized that we had to pay close to $1.5 million to a law firm to just do regulatory admin stuff, which is not legal work. I think you should still pay the lawyers for legal work, but not admin, form filling, navigating of like basic rules. And that was like the first insight that kind of got me interested, because remember I was launching the real-time payment product, and that payment couldn't be launched until we actually had all of these licenses. So it was a product strategy bottleneck, and then also go-to-market strategy bottleneck. So it was not so much as, like compliance as an infrastructure is needed to just operate. It was our GTM infrastructure. Like we couldn't unlock sources of revenue in many states because we didn't have the licenses to operate. So, people think of compliance as like this post-fact, after we have decided what product to build kind of infrastructure. But increasingly, if you actually have compliance set up in the right way, it helps you innovate and move faster on your product strategy and unlock many markets that you wouldn't have been able to kind of go to because you didn't have the regulatory approvals to go into those markets.
Prior to us really kicking off the conversation, you talked about AI native, and AI native was a while ago here in the United States. In some other parts of the world, it's becoming, they're thinking about how do I do that in 2 or 3 years, which I think is a very interesting, I hear that regularly. That's a very interesting idea, especially when it comes to what kind of market opportunity Anthropic and ChatGPT really have when the rest of the world is largely not turned on to these yet. Yeah. Some parts of it, but not all. Do you feel, as you think about AI in your business, you're kind of started. What year did you start?
2023, when AI was actually just beginning. And buying Brico.ai was actually the cheapest domain name available. So now it probably is like millions of dollars. But at that point, I paid $750 to get Brico.ai.
That's pretty great. So you come in, you start working in really AI native time. But do you view AI as a threat to your business, or do you view it as more of a enabler? Are there companies out there saying, I'm just going to go, and we experience this, by the way, as well. One of our large customers like, we're just going to use AI to go build subscription cancellation ourselves. I'm like, okay, you could totally do that. Go try it. And then 3 months later, they call us back and they're like, yeah, well, it turns out it's not really good at everything yet. And so let's go ahead and work with you guys. So but what are you seeing there?
I think it's true for almost all vertical companies, right? So I will break this thing down into 2 parts. First is, how good is AI right now? And then second is vertical versus like a generalist AI, right? So like the first one, AI is good at contextualizing things, at reading large amount of data, at just like summarizing information accurately and things like that. But the problem in regulated space is that you cannot convert all the regulations into code. You can really convert basic stuff. So like, net worth requirement, $10,000. Great, easy. Like, it's immutable, it's factual, you will not get it wrong.
Yeah.
But in regulation, there are a bunch of stuff which can be interpreted differently. So a state might think that permissible investment means X, but another state might think it means Y. Yeah. So there's a little bit of human judgments, because on the other side of the table, the regulators are human, and humans have different interpretations of the same fact. So in that kind of situation, it's not easy to just be like, automate everything. And in fact, if you are automating it in a very context-heavy industry, the 100%, like if you fall short of the 100% automation, you're going to make some massive mistakes. So the approach we've taken overall is like, we are an AI software led, but expert guided. So the people on our team actually do help with the human judgment aspect of it. What does the regulator really mean when they ask for this particular requirement? Versus like the law might say one thing, but the regulator actually believes it is something else. And navigating that is not something that Anthropic or OpenAI is like, good at, because you still need humans, because on the other side of the table, there are humans, and the human context plus not everything in regulation is like black and white. You got to combine the two in order to provide the most amount of value. So that's one part of like, overall, how good is AI right now? Maybe in 4 years, it will be able to do 100% interpretation as it gets more data, but right now it's not there. Now, the second part is the thing that you mentioned is like, vertical, very specific to a particular use case versus general, right? So even now, the data that we have, which is very, very specific to the industry that we serve, and we know all the ins and outs and the nuances, and also, well, when someone says permissible investment, what do they really mean? I'm taking the same example because it's one of the harder things to grok in like our space. And each state has its own version of it. So we can actually tailor the product based on what we have learned to that specific vertical. You can use ChatGPT to get like an overview of I need licenses, what do I need to do? It will give you like 60%-ish information. But the last 40% is like what will make or break your application. And that's where the very specific verticalized industry knowledge, people who have done this before, becomes very important. And also the data that we get are more like proprietary company data, which over a period of time builds a moat that these generic AI companies don't have, because people are not just like giving it its financial plans and things like that right now. Maybe, again, in 5 years it would get there, but not right now. And that's why I think the use cases, the user flows, the edge cases, all of those things that make a product wow only exist in like the vertical side of things. So that's how we think about it, is like, first, AI software-led, but expert-guided. So there's a lot more value because we are humans on both the sides of the table. And then third, it's also like vertical makes the workflow very suited to what exactly you want to do and take care of all the gotchas, which we've learned over the years as like a very vertical AI native company.
Yeah, it's interesting. Snigdha, what would you say to somebody that came in and said, well, gosh, that's not very scalable to have humans that are doing some of this work. But also, I assume there's also a layer that you're putting on top of AI to say, yeah, but here's our perspective on it, an expert's view on it. What would you say to somebody that's going to?
So it's interesting because that narrative has changed a lot. In the past, VCs would be like, no humans. We've had discussions where they're like, well, I think humans are your strength. And in the world that we are in, where a lot of companies are AI wrappers and Atomic and Anthropic and OpenAI can actually kind of just build those wrappers very easily.
Yeah.
In order for you to actually have a moat, you need to have that expertise angle. So we are actually seeing the way businesses are being judged very different. Like, how do you create business for the next 10 years versus how we have created businesses for the last 10 years,
for
right?
Sure.
And that's why the expertise, the human guided, if you're stuck somewhere, you still need humans, right? Nobody wants to be in like this AI world of like, oh, please try again. Like, I don't think the use case that you have makes sense. Please try again. You sometimes do need to break that loop and like have that expert who can like help you with, okay, this is a very different, I'll give you an example. One of our customers uploaded a document of certificate of good standing, which was not accurate because initially they made a mistake. So we had the AI system reject it 2 times. Like, this is not the right document. This is not the right document. And then they escalated to a human and be like, look, I have made a mistake. You have to accept it. I know this is not the regular document. And then we had the human acceptance, right?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of things that where like the human expertise is very important. And you can't codify the whole thing because there are edge cases and stuff like that. And then the value that human provide is not just on the product side, but licensing is a very boring, very unsexy. And also the people who do it are often not even valued as much in the company.
Yeah.
So when they feel they have a partner who they can talk, even vent to sometimes, that just makes their life so much more easier. And that's value add too.
Yeah, it is value add. You're totally right there. It's funny. A bank that I bank with, it's called Solera National Bank. I'm also on their board and I do some other things. I get such a kick out of they make it so you can text a banker and have and like there's this human component, and there's a lot of work being done to automate things. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, sometimes we just want somebody to talk to about things, right? Mm-hmm. I'll be interested in how that changes over the next 5 years, because at the same time, I took a Waymo here this morning because I didn't want to talk to an Uber driver as I was just trying to focus on this meeting. And you never know. Sometimes they're like, so how's your life? It's like,
and it can be whatever path you choose. If you need a human, you'll have a human. If you don't need a human, don't want to talk to anyone, you'll have an AI path. And if you get stuck, you'll still have human. Like if Waymo gets stuck on a road, you'll still need someone to like physically come and move it, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, how we think about the AI native business of today that is built for the next 10 years and not just something that is like a fad for the next 2 years, but something that actually provides value will be the human touch when in the world of AI, when everything feels automated and a little joyless, and then you can have the human be like your partner and like the luxury value added kind of a thing.
Yeah, awesome. So now going back a little bit in time for you, Snigdha, Digit. So what was your role there?
I actually started as the biz dev person, then I became the product person, and then I became the operations person. So I have had I joined early and I was there even 1 year post-acquisition. So I've seen it go through multiple roles myself and the company go through multiple stages.
Yeah. So coming back to consumer fintech and asking yourself, if you were doing that again today, in this current environment, with all you've learned as a founder this time around, what are some of the things you're like, oh, this was a key insight that we missed? But also, what also is, how do you, organizationally, how different is it?
So I'll talk about the organizational part first because we're seeing it right now, right? Like when I joined Digit, it was still early, but we still had 25 engineers on the team to build the product. It was old school AI. It was more rule-based deterministic AI that was moving money. Let's just like take a step back as to like what Digit was. It would like really figure out the right amounts of money to move from someone's bank account into like a little savings kitty that someone had, and then just like move that money almost every day based on how much was safe to save. So it was still AI-based, but very deterministic AI, and no hallucination was happening at that point of time. And we needed 20 plus engineers to like keep that even at a very early stage. Like I was employee number 38, but even then we had like, a bunch of engineers doing that. Now we are overall like, we need like 6 or 7 engineers to do what those 20 engineers did.
Yeah.
So the number of people that you need to build something has changed. So that's like a big part. But the quality of people that you need, the bar has gone higher. Because you do get what you, basically it's like bad input, bad output. So if you have smart and very senior people kind of use AI the way it's supposed to be used, you can actually 10x them. But if you have someone who's just using AI to like replace their own thinking, then you're going to like get 10x the slop and a lot of bugs that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Right? So organizationally, that has changed. We as a company, we have fewer technical talent needs, but the ones that do exist, they are very senior and also using AI to like max their potential versus like, we're just replacing headcount after headcount. And then also from what we learned, right? One of the things which drew me to Digit was the fact that as a company, we didn't believe that humans are irresponsible or like humans don't want to manage their finance or, generally there are bad people who are bad at savings. The thesis at Digit was that everyone wants to do the right thing, but the people who want to do the right thing most are also the people who have the least amount of time to do it. So what if we can reduce their cognitive burden and do the things for them? Because math is complex for any normal human being, but imagine it for someone who's doing 3 jobs in a day to make ends meet. They're not going to have time between one Uber job to like the next security job to like the morning cleaning job to figure out how much money do I have and how much money can I save. So we did the job for those people. It's like, I think we can save X and we've saved that Y amount for you. And that, I think, was the biggest learning, is like not thinking of people as inherently they don't want to do something. It's like figuring out why they don't want to do it and then reducing the cognitive load or the barrier to kind of do it. And which is very important in terms of my own learning at even Brico right now. Like that's the same feeling we have here, is we want to reduce a cognitive burden and not just feel that people don't want to be compliant or people don't want to get licensed. It's more like there's a why behind it. And if we can solve the why and do it in a non-judgmental manner, they will actually really do whatever they had initially set out to do, and it will be overall good for the market.
So with Brico, I imagine you're coming at this, and I'm trying to draw this back in for myself as well. So you see these issues, you see how difficult it is in all these places. The consumer, you see the issues with them, and then we come back into this. We say, okay, there's this compliance world that when I look at what's happening in financial services right now, in the building you're talking about with AI with your team, right? So now a team of 5 can do what a team of 20 could do before or less, right? Still, what kind of time savings are you delivering for your customer? Because even though I can build super fast, if I can build super fast, but then I have 1 year of licensing hell that I have to go through, or 1 year of like, what do I do with that, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there?
So we actually solve for that first, right? So it's like faster, cheaper, better. So for a faster perspective, if you are applying for a new application, you're actually going 5 times faster based on all the case studies we have done. If you're doing maintenance with us, which is once you do get the licenses, you have to do reporting and annual renewal stuff, in the past, people were spending like 4 to 5 weeks in a quarter doing that work. Now they're spending less than 2 days. So it is that kind of like, productivity gain. And most of the people, like we keep hearing our companies, oh, we would have to hire like a team of 5 people to do this. And now with Brico, we just need like, one person to kind of manage it. So it's not like we're replacing everyone in the industry, but at the same time, we're reducing the need to do manual stuff and then also have the licensing brain. You don't need to have specialized licensing people because you know what? The funny thing is, in whole of the US, there are probably only 150 people who know how to do licensing. And the reason I know that is because they all go to one conference and that's where everyone comes. And it's a very niche skill to hire for. And if we can basically become that brain that you don't need to hire these very specialized people and don't have to pay them a lot of money, that way you can scale the whole process a lot faster. And then also like, kind of go fast in your own product discovery phase because now you're not dependent on like being able to hire one of those 150 people to like get something done.
Yeah. So what are you seeing? I imagine a lot of the younger companies are coming to you as a go-to-market advantage, right? So what are you seeing there in the last year that, because I'm of two minds about it, right? I'm like, gosh, does the next Chime really get created in the next 5 years? I don't know. But also there are some advantages for younger companies now that they didn't have before. So what is your viewpoint sitting there where you sit today?
And we see that a lot. So we had one company which hadn't even raised their Series A. They were early seed. And they came to us like, the most important thing for us is get our licenses because this team actually was like ex-Binance, OFX, and like, that kind of background. They're like, I know my regulatory infrastructure is going to be my moat, and I have all of these protocols that I want to launch on top of it. So I actually want to get my licenses even before I get my Series A. So they started thinking of this as an important product and GTM hook for them, and also the way to raise Series A. So that's how people are thinking about it because we have made it easier to get licenses, but not just for like the early stage company. Even old school companies, they're maintaining things in spreadsheets right now.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about spreadsheets is like it is something that will get lost when the person who's maintaining it leaves the company. And it's happening a lot because there is investor pressure to reduce your team and there's investor pressure to like, kind of automate stuff. And then people leave. Nobody knows what was the conversation with the regulator, who said what, there is no source of truth. And people are still living in a world of like, I don't know what I need to do once that person leaves, right? And that's actually what is changing now is like people are like, I need to have like a source of truth because there is early stage company, it's a advantage from a product standpoint to like get ahead of it, which in the past, the barriers of entry were so expensive that only large companies could do it. So now there's a more fair playing field to try those new products. And then also from larger companies, because there's so much pressure for them right now from investors to like just show efficiency and automation that the spreadsheet world is untenable. And now they need to like really automate. And starting with AI native system will actually allow them to kind of build that source of truth from day one versus like, waiting for like something bad to happen and then having to change it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. As we kind of finalize a few thoughts here, I wanted to, we're going to transition a little bit here because you became a mom in the last year.
Yes.
You did it as a founder. I'd love to hear, I'm a father of 4. It's being a founder and having a family. I don't believe in the idea that you can't have both things. But also, it's not for everyone to try to do both. What does it look like for you in the last year to make that adjustment? You took some time off, if I remember right, and you had your team step up, hopefully, and take on a lot of the burden. But what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so the obvious thing is you need a village to be a parent, right? I think we live in a world where we have individualized our life so much that we have forgotten the whole idea of like, you needed a village to raise a kid. So I think I've been lucky to have that village. And I'll break down what the village looks like for me, right? So first, on the professional front, I took 8 weeks off when, I gave birth. Also to just like set an example that you can do it. And the reason to do that was I believe that the team that we have in place should be given opportunity to step up And then it also allows me as a founder to take a step back and be like, what happens when I'm not around, right? You see the cracks and you see where the things spike. And very few founders have the ability to like take a step back and see, is your company going to work without you? Because I think that's a testament of a great company that, it's not dependent on just the founder. You build the right foundation that it can thrive without you also. So in those 2 months, we actually crushed our quarterly goals. We got like a product ship that we had planned faster than we had initially planned.
You're like, what am I even doing? You're
Exactly. And I'm like, do I need to take like a longer time off? But I think the team, like that's like my number one village in order to like, do what I'm doing. They're very capable, and we empower a team to do whatever they think is the right thing, but obviously with the guardrails. And we have some good people who like think with the Brico value and mission first and want to deliver customer joy. The second village is our extended family. So my husband and I, we both come from India. Our parents live in India, but they actually came here for multiple months to help us ease into this like journey. And we had my parents first, then my husband's parents, just kind of be there at home, right? And grandparents taking care of the grandkid is a very different thing than like outsourced childcare, because when a child is young, all they want is love, attention, and just I didn't have to worry about it when I was working or traveling, because we had people at home who cared about their kid more than I did. Actually, that's actually how it works in India. Like your interest is more valuable than the principal, and they call the kids their principal and the grandkids their interest. So that was like the second part of the village, and I guess like third is my husband. So what many people more don't know is he's also a founder. He's a Series B startup CEO, running a very busy life, and but he is like more than 50% sometimes in terms of like child rearing. Like in the beginning, he was a more natural father, and I had to like learn and like get into like that whole thing. So without him, I don't think I would be able to do what I did. And he's the one constantly pushing me to be like, oh, it's fine, I'll take care of him, and like you go. And he'll take calls with his team and everything, with like baby wrapped around him and everything. Also to just show that it's very normal to do that, and you need to have both lives, because it also makes us a lot more efficient, but then also a lot more thoughtful about what we are doing. You are not in it for money, because if you were in it for money, then you would actually do like a high-paying tech job, because your time is so valuable, and you understand that what you're doing it for like a larger problem, and then that drive is very different, because then you're like, hey, I'm actually not spending time with my kid. I'm actually not making that much money. So what I'm doing, it better be like something great. Otherwise, I'm like wasting my life, right? So it's a very different kind of motivation and drive. And I feel more of that now, to just like, keep pushing forward and like keep changing the whole category of what we're building, because the opportunity cost is very high and it's very expensive. And that's what like makes us a lot more motivated in what we're doing right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm a big fan of systems thinking. So Brene Brown has written several books. She referenced work by a woman named Donella Meadows that wrote a book in the late 90s, early 2000s called Systems Thinking. And while not the godmother of systems thinking, she was part of that next generation. And it's been so interesting for me as I've tried to focus on the systems in my life. As a father of 4, there's tremendous focus and emphasis. I mean, I told all my investors from day one, if I fail at fatherhood, this business won't have mattered at all, right? And it's the most important thing to me as being a husband and a father. I'm actually taking my first time that I've ever taken more than a week off work ever.
Oh, okay.
Is this summer.
Okay,
and,
good for you.
I introduced. Partially because my business partner and I was like, hey, we both need to figure out our kids are getting older. My oldest is 13.
Okay.
And so we're like, hey, for a 5-year thing at Atomic is going to be a sabbatical of some kind. And so I thought I was going to take 8 weeks. I think it'll end up being 4. But it'll be a really big change for me to take, a 4 weeks off. To your point, I'll probably see what's creaking a little bit differently in the company, right? What's going a little bit not as I thought. But the system for me is focused on what is the system I'm putting in place that makes the default quality relationships with my family and the default quality outputs for my company. And if I can make those things default, then everything else can work itself out. I'm certainly a founder that's like, nothing matters but my family first and then my business. And sometimes that leads to my wife teases me sometimes that I don't have a lot of really deep friendships. I'm like, yeah, like it's just family and work.
And work, yeah.
And I'm fortunate to be partnered with a couple of people that I consider deep friends. Some people are like, that doesn't count, but it does. And then I'm like, oh, I would spend days with this person in a heartbeat. But what do you think are some of the systemic things that make default the success of your company, default the success in family that have added and allowed you to be successful there?
That's a very good question. I think default in the company is hiring the right people in the founding team.
Yeah.
I think, like people who care about the business, not as like, mercenaries to like make money out of the business, but like they really care about the problem as much as you do.
Yeah.
So I think that's the default. And then also getting people who are doing this for the right reason. Like they want to create a category. They want to solve the problem that has plagued the industry for such a long time. And then also having some amount of ownership that you get them. Like if they do make some mistakes, it's not like you're going to get killed, right? Like there's some space to take those decisions, and even if you make some mistakes, obviously it's not company ending mistakes, but you know that someone has your back. So that actually allows the empowerment of the team to really step in when the time is right and to like work in a default. I experienced that a lot when I was at Digit. Like Ethan, who was the CEO, he just was like, do whatever, as long as you're not killing the company. I don't need to know. I trust you to figure this out. And that actually really pushed me to do a lot more over there. And the same thing, I try to do that here. Like that allows the company to be default alive even without me. And obviously the focus on product market fit. Like you cannot run a default alive company if you don't have a product market fit. So knowing the pain and really solving for the pain versus like whatever the newest trend, that will also allow you to be default alive and have a system in place that keeps the company default alive.
Now, if you don't mind, Snigdha, transition that to family.
Yeah.
Because so many founders I know, we just had somebody in earlier who has 3 kids. It's hard to figure out. It's a default alive concept from whoever was it, right? Like, how do you make that the case of family? How do you make sure that the family is default success?
Someone told me as a very young woman that the best professional decision you ever make in a life is who you marry. So I think that is the default of life. Like whoever your partner is, they need to be in it for the journey with you. There will be hard times. Marriage is not easy. It's 2 people with some completely different value systems coming together. But as long as you choose the right person for the right reason, and they know why you're doing what you're doing, and they're actually helping you become better. So that's number one. I think the other thing is really the importance of family as an infrastructure. That's the default of life. Like, yes, it comes with people will be in your personal space sometimes. People will tell you what not to do. But
Totally.
Having my parents and in-laws here, we couldn't have made the first year happen without them, right?
Yeah.
So knowing that, yes, it's not 100% perfect, but what in life is 100% perfect, right? Yeah. And that infrastructure also keeps our default alive. I think both me and my husband also come from not very rich background. We were we grew up with very little, and that's why I think we don't act like CEOs at home, and we don't act like CEOs outside. Yeah. If you see us in a travel or a flight, people would be like, what is going on? They're still in the middle seat of an economy trying to make things work with a child, because I think not losing track of where you have come also keeps your default alive. Mm-hmm. and not taking any amount of success too seriously, because that is it can go away, but what doesn't go away is that family that you're built together, and you'll always be irreplaceable over there.
Yeah, agreed. And we've been talking about several different things here. The family piece is important to me, partially because you're a new mom, but also because I look at the things that I put in place that are the immovable things. There's a line in Fiddler on the Roof where he says that our traditions tell us, basically, the concept is our traditions teach us who we are, mm-hmm. right? And in our family, in our company, we have traditions, we have lore, we have things that we talk about and repeat on a regular basis. In our family, we've chosen to do the same thing, my wife and I. And I completely agree with your point. I was just talking to a friend last night about how I thought parenthood would be the best thing in life. I now believe it's possible that an amazing marriage is even better. Mm-hmm. And I believe that. But one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot recently, so in our home, for example, every Monday night, and sometimes I'm traveling on Mondays, but every Monday night we get together as a family. And there is, we pray as a family. We also sing a song. Everybody does a talent, and all the kids always think it's really funny when mom and dad do a weird talent they knew nothing about. And we just work through, and then we play a game together, and then we have a treat together. And like every Monday night, it has happened our entire marriage, right?
That's
but
awesome.
choosing to make like some things, like this is not something we budge on. Every evening we get together and we spend 10 minutes before bedtime talking about a key principle or key thing that we want to learn as a family, saying a quick prayer. But like these sorts of things, and they become immovable. And like, again, sometimes I'm not there, sometimes my wife's not there, depending on different duties, but it gets done every single day, and it becomes something kids can rely on. We also came up with, I think it's funny how sometimes we don't translate some of this work learnings, but we have 6 core founding principles that we rely on in a family, right? Like people are more important than things, progress over perfection, all these sorts of things that on our Monday nights, we say as a family together. Each person says one, and we talk about those principles as a family. But so much of what we learn in work can transition over very well and create great long-term benefits. I was watching this great series, this great documentary on animals recently, and it was talking about the dynasties created by these leaders in the animal kingdom that made hard decisions in tough times and were able to weather a storm that set their kids up for great success, right? And I'm of the opinion that finances are the least important thing to set up for your kids for a great success. I can't tell you how many investors have been like, Jordan, you're going to set up your family for generational wealth or whatever it is. But I'm like, that is the stupidest thing. I'm not giving them any of the money anyway. I don't want to do that. What I want them to set them up for is generational happiness. And like, if I can, and what I've found is that money generally, too much of it ruins people generally. I've seen a few standouts, but that's generally the case. And so how can we focus on taking the learnings, because we see that in our companies too, right?
Yeah.
We see people that get spoiled from some of those opportunities and don't stay hungry and don't keep working hard. Not that I don't want them to crush it financially, but I would love for them to be able to do that and be able to see another side of themselves.
100%. And I mean, you're a more experienced family person. We are still learning to build those traditions. But I will say, my husband runs a podcast called Geniuses Born or Made. And it's all about interviewing parents and people who are considered geniuses. And the one constant thing that has come as, what do you need to do to set up someone who's super successful in their life? And a regret that most people have is like not teaching their kids to struggle enough. It's a bit like startup, right? Like if you have
You're
gotten
totally right.
50 million funding in seed, you're not going to have the fire to struggle and like really make something happen. Maybe some people will, like you said, there are exceptions, but most people will just get very, very overwhelmed and make decisions that they wouldn't have made if they had like resource constraints and they knew that they had to struggle to survive the next day. So I think that also goes a little bit into like, bringing up kids and setting them up for success, is like teaching them a little bit to struggle and not just making it easy for them.
Yeah, and if I consider Snigdha pre-Brico and Snigdha now, my assumption is that you would say, wow, the growth there has been so much more. And you alluded to this earlier on in our conversation, but that opportunity of starting a company, it forces so much out of you, that struggle, that it's an incredible mechanism for growth. Anyway, I'm super, super grateful to be able to have you on today. Thank you. I'm also super grateful to know you and be your friend.
Yeah, I mean, this was such a fun conversation, very different than any kind of other conversation that we had, matching professional and personal life. And I learned a lot about your family tradition. Maybe we'll do our own, maybe on a weekend. That's just easier.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Snigdha.
Yeah.